podcast listeners. Friday, bringing back episode 16. I know that was Rocky. Don't laugh at me. Episode 16 here. I like all of our shows.
For sure.
They're all very interesting, but this one blew me away. And I don't know the exact timeline, but in 4 years, he's gone from one single family up to multiple $1 million portfolio in 4 years. So Dylan Suitor here with us. We're going to bring him on in a second, but this show we kind of talk about more about lifestyle and what he does to get himself prepped and ready. We did dabble a little bit about how he got into real estate and that background, but one big takeaway is how he got started, how he keeps himself motivated, how he keeps his team motivated, because his team has grown, obviously, with his expansion of the company. But Natasha did not tell me. She purposely hid this guest from me until I got here. And then about 2 minutes before we air, she's like, oh, yeah, here's our guest. So little choppy,
so good.
Starstruck a little bit in terms of where this guy has taken his company. So many takeaways from just a personal aspect, and then two, how to get started if you're thinking about getting started in real estate. Just the motivation and drive that this guy has and mindset that he has will get you motivated. It was a great show. Thank you, Natasha, for bringing him on.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys enjoy it. If you have any comments, if you want to get in contact with him, we're going to leave all his contact information in the show notes.
All right, cool. Yeah, so, this could really go a number of different ways. So my mom worked at Scotiabank, which is one of the big 5 banks up in Canada. I am about 45 minutes west of Toronto, is where I currently reside. And my mom worked at a big 5 bank for about 28 years in mortgages. I grew up around it, and I kind of learned all about mortgages. So she always used to say, hey, why don't you get your mortgage license and we can work together. We can be in business together. And I said, I am not having you as a boss. So I decided to pivot, go a bit of a different direction, and got my real estate license. So we get to work together, except I don't have to answer to her, which is awesome. And it actually worked out really, really well. I no longer have to do anything wrong, and I get to yell at her still if something doesn't get done right. So we've built a really good relationship that way. And over the past, I'd say 4.5, 5 years, I've gone from being a realtor that wanted to represent myself and kind of cut commissions into kind of a real estate investor that also has a large real estate team that's also involved in brokerage ownership and kind of driving the bus on a summit that we do every October now, similar to Family Reunion Mega Camps. We call it the Real Estate Growth Summit. The idea is to give back, and it came from KWIP, built around the fundamentals of education, social, and culture. So through that, I currently run and operate a team in Oakville of about 14 members. Just added 2 more today, actually, so I should say 16 members with ISAs, agents, admins, so on and so forth. That is a team that did last year about $86 million in volume. We will do probably about $250 million in volume this year if we kind of hit our targets, which we're off to a great start on so far this year. I have a brokerage that I've taken over in the heart of Toronto that we started off with 82 agents when we started a couple months ago, and we've already grown. We're on track to our 159 agent goal by the end of this year. And then my real estate investment portfolio is quite interesting. My business partner and I started working together about 4 years ago, and I went from a residential simple investor that had 5 properties in my own name to having 9 different corporations with over 300 doors in real estate investing worth over $50 million in holdings. And so in a very short period of time, I've been able to compound real estate as an agent into real estate as an investor, into real estate as a broker owner. And I love sharing valuable insights and knowledge to allow other individuals to grow in any of those areas.
That is quite the background. I'm kind of upset that you live in Toronto because I was hoping that you were going to be in Wisconsin somewhere. That is awesome. And I was interested. I was going to ask you kind of what asset class you invest in, but you kind of answered it. But the one thing that I love about your background is because what I want to do with this podcast is show people that people can invest in real estate, and you don't go from 0 to 1,000. So it takes time. You started out simple residential investor, and then things just took off, which is awesome to hear your story. And I'm hoping that kind of inspires people that it can be done. Obviously, I'm sure it was a hard work to get there.
Well, yes, and I'm a little bit crazy.
You don't sound crazy.
I'm involved with Tony Robbins. I'm a platinum partner. I've been a platinum partner for 2 years now. So I get to travel around and hang out with Tony. I was in his natural hot spring, hearing about his artificial intelligence with just a small group, a handful of people, beginning of 2020 in Sun Valley, Idaho. That was pretty awesome. Just kind of hanging out with Tony Robbins. It was pretty sweet. Highlight of my year. Yeah. And
you're going to have to tell me more about Tony Robbins. I read all about him. I actually just took his personality test on his website like last week.
Yeah?
Just for kicks and giggles. I just wanted to do it. Yeah. Because I've taken the Myers-Briggs.
Yeah.
But Tony Robbins has his own.
I've taken a couple of them. I've had to take a couple of them for my assisting job that I do. So it's been interesting to find out all of my quirks and strengths and weaknesses.
But man, you want to wake up and watch a Tony Robbins video in the morning? Like, your day is going somewhere. If that guy doesn't get you motivated, I don't know what can.
So he has this thing that he doesn't own, but he recommends. It's called a Nucalm, Nucalm, and it's like this software technology. It used to be a big machine, now it's on your phone, and you put these little patch little rings on, and the technology behind them is basically that it'll put you into a deep sleep quickly. But when I bought Nucalm, it was like $5,000 or something like that to buy it. But when I bought that program, it came with this software called Ignite, and Ignite is still in its beta testing, but I have access to the beta because I bought Nucalm. And Ignite is actually, there's 5 different Ignite sessions. They're about 20 minutes. And they do the opposite. So instead of putting you in like a deep sleep or a REM sleep quick, it's supposed to pump you up and amp you up. So it's actually Tony in the locker room with the Golden State Warriors is one of them, and it's like he talks about Steph chewing on his mouth guard and how that operates, and he's like, when he's loose as a goose, he's doing all these different things, and it's really awesome because he's inspiring and he's talking through how just the way people think, and his whole concept is all about the physiology of the human body and how that is what makes up most of what you do, and that your state, which you can slouch your shoulders over and then you have zero low energy, or you can kind of put your chest up, puff it up, and then you have that much more energy to kind of like take over the world and conquer the world. And being able to transform my life and utilize that in everyday life allows me to kind of snap my fingers, use pattern interrupts, really change my state, which then allow me to conquer any problems or any issues that may arise in any world. And that's kind of the ability to just change on a dime is what I've learned from him, which has allowed me to grow in real estate and investments and the brokerage. Like, there isn't a single day that goes by that there isn't 10 fires that are like require immediate attention. But I know that with utilizing the different tactics and techniques he's taught me, that I can overcome all of them, and it's just a matter of kind of dealing with them as they come and just get used to them. So that's really the big takeaway that I've had for the personal development side of things with him.
Yeah, and that's one common theme that I'm seeing with a lot of investors or people that are kind of entrepreneur. They all take the time and make the time for that self-care, for that self-development. They make that a priority, where some people find like it's a waste of time because they're not buying more property or researching more development space. Like, they set aside the time to read books, to listen to podcasts, to follow these motivational speakers so that they can get their mindset correct. And then obviously it shows in their production. I don't know if you're finding that out in the field as well, but that's one thing that I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I went down this little path, and as I got into real estate investing, I started like finding out that everyone in real estate investing is like into CrossFit. And I was like, why are you into CrossFit? Like, what's the reason for CrossFit? It's like, it's all about being the best version of yourself in every area of your life. And then I go down and I meet a naturopath, and I'm like, what do I need a naturopathic doctor for? Like, I don't need a doctor, I'm good. And then I started meeting with them, and then I'm like, okay, I'm doing blood work, I'm doing saliva testing, I'm finding out my cortisol levels, I'm seeing when my energy is up and when my energy is down. I take different vitamins to keep my energy at a high at all times. I check in with them on a monthly basis. I do blood work on a quarterly basis. It's like I started realizing that all that real estate investing, most investors, when they scale up, it's not about how many properties they can buy. It's about how they can overcome the problems they're going to naturally come up.
Yeah.
Because in this industry, it happens. And you have to be in a mental capacity to take it on, which means you have to be in peak physical shape, which means you have to be in peak mental state, which means you have to always be improving, always be growing, which means you need to have the supplements. You need to put yourself in a position so that your body can handle whatever amount of stress is required. The only way you can do that is to start to engage in your body and understand your body.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that in real estate investing, that's 100% accurate. Almost every investor that I know that scales, they have a naturopath. They have some sort of physical activity they take part in on a daily basis. They have sort of journaling. They read books. They do the things that the top 1% do because they're looking at performing at the highest level.
Yeah. No, it is true. I have like a 1,000 questions, but I'm going to try to keep them to real estate.
Try to real estate.
So we're going to have to talk offline. I'll do the non-real estate questions. I got yelled at on one show because I just kept asking questions, and Tasha's like, we're at like an hour and a half. We got to cut this. So when you started out with real estate, in your mind, you're like, I'm getting my real estate license. Did you at all have any vision of getting to where you're at now? Is that where you wanted it to scale, or did it just happen naturally?
My first year in real estate, I was like, I'm just going to save the commission. And I was this like proud kid that was walking in there. I'm like, I don't need to pay another realtor. I can do it myself. And I'm like, now I'm living the life of going, oh, purple bricks, or I'm Zillow, and I'm like, I'm beating my head against the wall. And I'm like, that was me. That was me back there. And then little old me at that point in time had no idea of this real estate world and everything that was involved in this and how I could excel at such a high level by engaging in the systems and tools that are here. And my first year of real estate, I was like, I'm just going to sell and buy my own properties. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to add 10 doors to my portfolio. I remember taking bold like my first year, and I was like, by next year, I'm going to have 10 doors. And then the next year came, and I had accomplished my whole list of accomplishments. I was like, I'm going to sell 20 properties, or I think I said 10, and they were like, double it. So I doubled it, and it went to 10 properties. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sell 20 properties. I'm going to buy 10 doors, and I'm going to live the life by design. And that was my like first or second year. And then all of a sudden, and the next year afterwards, I found out about the MREA like really deep, and then I started looking at. I had Gene Rivers' business planning class, and he showed me the organizational model, and he showed me how a fourth level team is 2 admin and 2 agents. And this was before the MREA 2 concept came out. But he showed me how just 2 admin and 2 agents, including the Rainmaker, focusing on their one thing, which would be like a client care and a transaction coordinator, and being a buyer agent and listing specialist. Those 4 individuals can do 120 units. And my average sales price is $1 million. So I can do $120 million with 4 people. And I was like, wait a second. This is math. Like all this is a numbers problem. It's a numbers game. And I was like, whoa, wait. And all I have to do that is I ran the economic model. I'm like, well, that just means that I need to make 23 phone calls a day. And that means that my 23 phone calls a day, I just need to have 75% of them meet with me. Another 75%, only 75 has to do it. I'm going to sell 50 houses this year. And I made this goal of like selling 50 houses. And that was like my 3rd-year goal. And I was like, I'm going to build this team. And I remember getting my 2 admin at the time on the team super amped up because I grabbed a whiteboard, and I hear Gary talk from the stage. He's like, bring out a whiteboard, do everything whiteboard. And so I did that. I started writing all over the whiteboard. And I'm like, growth is so simple if you just break it down and do it step by step. Like how do you eat an elephant 1 bite at a time?
The reverse
same
engineering.
With real estate investing.
You sound like a little kid at Christmas. It's adorable. Like, you're like, I'm so excited about this.
It's hard to not get excited. Like, that's an awesome accomplishment. I'm sitting here too, just like staring at the phone.
He's willing you to come through the phone.
Yeah. No, it's something that we aspire to get to. So that's why it's exciting to listen to you get there. I think it's enduring for the people that are on the fringe of wanting to get into real estate. I mean, you are the model of, I'm going to get into real estate and see where it goes. And you got a little taste of it, and then it just took off. But yeah,
I have an addictive personality, and sometimes that doesn't serve me the right way.
Gotcha.
However, when I got into real estate, it totally did. It changed my life around, changed my entire world around, because being addicted to growth, being addicted to health, being addicted to education, being addicted to adding more value to the conversations I had with everyone, being addicted to impacting more lives. All of a sudden, I was like, my addictive personality is put to it's channeled in the right use.
That's awesome.
And it freed me. my energy was so much higher. Like I wake up in the morning, I jump out of bed, I run around, I'm like, what do I do? It's 4 a.m. Like, what am I going to do? No one else is awake. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go for a walk with the dog. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to write something. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it.
Oh my God. That's awesome.
And so it's like I've channeled that energy through addiction in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I was always addicted to sports because it kept me at everything else. And I was just like, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. I'm going to be better. And so now it's just a matter of like how amazing, how far can we stretch? And by having that energy, I have incredibly talented people that come into my world and are like, please let me be in your world. Like, I want to be in your world. Like, what do I need to do? And I'm like, you're like more important than me. You do more than me. And I know I don't really give myself the credit for what we've accomplished because these people come up to me and I'm like, yes, we'll have you in our world. I don't know how, but we'll find the spot.
Right.
And so now you get talent. And our real estate investment portfolio, like my business partner and I were on a call 2 weeks ago, and he brought like there was 8 people on the call. I remember the one line. He's like, well, Dylan and I are just the dummies that just think of a big idea. All these people are the ones that put the systems in place, and they're the ones who have the operations. They manage all of our tenants, and we have our CEO of this, and we have our full-time engineer, and this guy deals with all the city permits. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, all the things you just said, I don't even know how to spell. But all we did was have a big idea around it, had lots of energy, and people are like, these guys are going to do it. And by having that vision and sharing that energy because we take care of ourselves, people naturally gravitate to us. And it's just been, I don't know, it's been a really interesting growth pattern that I didn't expect. And you would just ask, like, how many houses did you think you were going to sell? What did you think your portfolio was going to be? I remember after 3 years of Bold, I was like, I'm going to have 100 doors before I die. And now I'm like, I'm going to add 1,000 doors this year.
That's amazing.
So it's a mindset shift, and it goes back to Tony Robbins. It's all about your psychology, your physiology. It's your body makeup and what you believe. Because if you believe it, you just build out the process on how to get there. If you don't accomplish, Elon Musk just said, if you had to accomplish your 5-year goals in 6 months, what would you do differently?
Yeah.
And if you weren't to accomplish those 6-month goals or those 5-year goals in 6 months, and it took you 8, would you be upset?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, it's still a short time frame. If your 5-year goal and you do it in 8 months, still pretty positive.
That's great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. Bonus points for bringing up Elon Musk, because he would be the one person, if I could have lunch with anybody, it'd be him. Tony Robbins is close.
Well, it's easy to bring up Elon Musk right now because he's talking about Bitcoin and everything's Bitcoin, and now he's behind it. And so my business partner loves Bitcoin, so he's sitting there going like, see, I told you, Elon Musk. And I'm like, this thing fluctuates from 10 grand to 50 grand out of 30 grand out of 40 grand a coin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man, I can't get behind it. I don't understand it well enough.
Yeah.
So I'll probably dabble at some point, but.
Okay.
Yeah. I've looked into Bitcoin from when it came out, and it was like a penny stock.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just don't get it. So I couldn't
Yeah.
even get to that. And now I see where it's at. And I'm like, oh, I missed the boat. But,
You didn't know.
didn't know. And we're going to edit this out. I had a question before when we were talking about Elon Musk. I can't remember what it was. I apologize.
We'll circle back.
I've only had like 3 moments like this on a podcast where I just forget
Don't
the
need to
question.
apologize at all.
So when you look at investments, are you just strictly in Canada? Do you diversify into the U.S.? Where's your niche? Is there an asset class? Is it a location?
This is a question that if you ask myself or my business partner the same question, you get a different answer.
Okay.
He's the brainiac behind getting me on board to be a crazy person to buy some properties, and that's been based on finding properties below the price of build. So we look at the cost of lumber, we look at the cost of labor, we look at the cost of land, we add it all up, and if it's like a house would cost $500,000 to build, but we're going to buy it and renovate it for $400,000 and it's going to bring in cash flow, we'll buy it. Because at some point in time, like, builders can't go in and build. They're just prohibited to. They can't. They have to find somewhere else. So we buy the bottom of the market. We buy the rougher areas. We buy the areas that need to improve. We buy the areas, I mean, in southern Ontario, all of Ontario, which is like a major piece of Canada, when you're looking at the actual asset classes, every house is going to have to be lived in. We don't have enough housing. We have a massive housing shortage. And we have, I mean, our Prime Minister just said that we're going to be bringing in over 400,000 immigrants because of COVID. He needs to increase taxes. So that's how we're going to do it. And so it's like, we don't have houses for the people we currently have, and you want to bring in 400,000 more, there's a problem. We need to figure that out. And so we look at stuff and go, it's going to continue to work. It's going to continue to appreciate. The economics just show that it will. And at some point in time, there'll be a dip. At some point in time, there'll be a crash. But we've gotten to the point where we've insulated ourselves that if it did, we have the cash flows that surpass that. Mm-hmm. We're up to over $300,000 a month in cash flows. And so, not cash flows, sorry, in gross income. So we have the income to cover all of our debt. We have the cash flows that will continue to accumulate. And now it's just a matter of growing and buying more. So he loves the 1 to 4 unit that are already either multis or that we can keep a really high cap rate that are not, you can't find them anywhere else in the country. And the reason he likes those, or in the province at least, the reason he likes those is because he's like, the cap rates will catch up. Eventually, the cap rates are going to continue to compress. They have forever. They're going to continue to do that. So he basically buys that. I've kind of looked at more towards buildings. I personally love buildings. I have an offer in right now in an 88-unit apartment building that I'm like super pumped to get to. I have a 32-unit apartment building. We have a couple of 21 we bought not too long ago. So like, I love the bigger buildings. He doesn't like the turnover of it. He doesn't like having to turn the tenants over. He thinks it takes too long. Mm-hmm. And a lot of our financing options that we've used, because we use 100% financing on the purchase, we carry high debt loans too long. So the apartment buildings are too challenging to turn over, and it's his teams that are the ones that have to turn them over. So that's why he likes the smaller units.
I gotcha. Yeah, and it's always fascinating where people's mindsets are coming from in terms of their investment. I am working so hard to get into that apartment asset class. Like, I want to go 30 and above. If I can find a 50 this year, I would love to get it. Because where I'm coming from, I would rather have, with a single family home that I've rented here in town, if I lose a tenant, I am 100% vacant. Yeah. If I have an apartment complex and one person moves out, it's not a huge dent to me. And that's just where my, like, I would call it safety comfortable area is. But on your side, on the finance side, yeah, it does take a little bit different approach in how you finance everything on that one. If you had it your way, would you go into these multifamily, or do you like staying smaller?
I love staying smaller with him because he manages the whole thing.
That makes it easy.
It makes my life really easy. It's uber leverage. Like, everything works. I've spoke goals for years. He always shows me options and ways we can get better. I just need to keep finding more money, which I do. I need to keep building out a better team with him. We keep doing. And so it works really, really well. For me, like, I continue to want to grow my real estate business as an agent and real estate brokerages business and my involvement in KW Canada. And because of that, I put a lot of my time and energy into that. But it works in conjunction because as I'm developing that relationship, my name and my brand become larger. Now we get more wholesalers to reach out to us. Now I'm on more podcasts and people to reach out to us. And it works in conjunction that I continue to have a steady flow of investors. I continue to have steady flow of private lenders. I continue to have a steady flow of wholesalers that bring us properties that we can continue to buy. And so I just funnel stuff in, pass it to him, and then his team runs it, manages it. And so it works really well that way.
And where do you guys, how did you get connected with wholesaling? Like, what was the first, was it a company or a person that you met at one of these groups you were talking about earlier?
I mean, everyone's aware of the how everyone wants in on the real estate commissions, and so wholesalers are no different. Wholesalers tend to be people that can make a quick buck on flipping a property, flipping a contract, whatever that may be. Mm-hmm. It wasn't very common in Canada until a few years ago. It still, I don't think, is really common, but I think that people are seeing that they can pick up a property for $100,000. I mean, we just closed on one today. They picked up for $100,000. They sold it to us for $135,000. Well, that property's worth $300,000 for us to put 20 into it. So they made a quick $35,000. I don't even know, like, the seller wanted to get out for whatever reason, and we now have to take on that person's problem. We pay our $20,000 to renovate it. We refinance it. Now we have an asset that is a really good asset for us long term. And in the overall grand scheme of things, it should be a win-win-win. But now, because of that, a couple of people started hearing about wholesalers. There's one company that got pretty big in Southern Ontario that's still pretty big with it. And so everyone and their friend decided, I'm going to go be a wholesaler. And so they just put out yellow flyers, and they knock on doors, and they do all these things, and then they meet with sellers that want to sell, and they get them under contract, and then they toss them on Facebook or they toss them on social media. The problem I have with most wholesalers now is I feel like the valuations on what the actual property is worth are done incorrectly almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then they say, oh, this wholesale is $50,000 under market, or this one's $20,000 under market. And I'm sitting there going, like, most of these wholesales we're buying, taking on all the liability, dealing with all the problems. There needs to be a bigger gap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take on the problems of an unconditional offer on a property that could have to get knocked down because I'm saving $20,000 off of retail price. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that some of the wholesalers may be getting themselves into a scenario where they're going to basically fizzle out because there isn't enough meat on the bone for people to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we're in a chaotic market. I don't know if you guys are, but we're in a chaotic market that you can't find any inventory. And so for that, wholesalers are able to make markup on properties because they can't close on them. And a lot of these times, these wholesalers, it's a short-term game so they can generate enough capital to then buy the properties themselves.
Right. Yeah, we're kind of in that same market here where there's really low inventory and things are gone in a couple days.
Yeah.
So if you see something, you got to jump on it quick.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about your team and how you got them? How did you get that all started? Obviously, it started with you. Where was the first kind of support that you reached out to? And then how did it grow from there?
Sorry, I need to clarify. Which team are we on? Like the investment business?
Yeah, the investment side. You can go on the investment side. Yeah.
Okay. So on the investment side, I think the first thing was my business partner and I. We met years ago. My uncle actually dated his mom years and years ago.
Okay.
So I had a painting company. She hired us to do some drywall and painting work. And we just kind of kept in touch, and it was a relationship. He was Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad. I hadn't, then I did. I was like, okay, so everything you say makes sense. Because my mom was again at Scotiabank. She was in an A-type mortgage environment where if you took a B mortgage or if you took private lending, you were the devil. That was my upbringing. So it was like 4 years of getting to know what this entire world was about. And the first person that really tipped me off was I took a course. Actually, I took a course. It's an American course called Flipping Formula. And my biggest takeaway from a $72,000 package was that I had to get more involved in the free local meetups. And so I had these free local meetups I started looking into and inquiring in, and then I showed up at one, and it was just so happened to be, I started saying hi to everyone, and one guy was like, hey, I'm starting another one. I'm starting another meetup. And I was like, cool, that's like around the corner from my house. So I went and I got to that meetup, and I've now been a part of that meetup for 3.5 years. I'm now the real estate sponsor, and my team ended up becoming from a lot of people that I met at that meetup. So I found other like-minded individuals from that meetup. My mortgage broker that I was using, not my mom, my mortgage broker that I'm using to buy a lot of these properties privately taught a full-day course on private financing. So I attended that course. And then I started picking up real estate clients, and then I started picking up other people in these classes that I was a part of. They were like, hey, I want to learn what you're doing. And so they'd join my team. They'd work for free. They'd be an admin, or they'd be an agent, or they'd find us deals, or they'd analyze properties. And then we've just kind of organically grown where more and more people come into my world because they want to be clients, or they want to be, they want to build a portfolio or whatever that may be. And then because we have similar goals, instead of it being a 9 to 5 where they clock in and clock out, it's like I could call almost anyone on my team any hour of any day, and they're going to answer the phone. And if not, they're going to call me back within an hour because they don't think of their job as a job. They think of what we do as a lifestyle. And that applies to all of my different businesses, is that the environment, the mentality of the people that I work with, they look at this and go, okay, well, I'm here for a job. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do my task. I'm going to work till the job's complete, but I'm also here to serve people. And so it's a different style of thinking. The people that I have around, all they do is they want to serve our clients. They want to be the best for our clients. And our clients can be agents. Our clients can be investors. Our clients can be our tenants. And so our team is really built out around who do we need to service? Who do we need to provide the highest level of value to? And it's just a mindset that I'm constantly thinking of. So when I'm doing speeches or talking or leadership meetings, it all turns into a mindset of growth and a mindset of abundance and a mindset of giving and a mindset of providing massive value. So the teams that we have everywhere are set up with that same intention. My business partner says it quite often. He said, if you're making a decision to get a check, get out of the team. If you're making a decision because it's what's the best for, he actually named the investment company we had SID, and my company's Elevation, and so Elevate SID is our corp, and he looks at SID, SID, which is Spend, Invest, Diversify, and he ends up relating or referring to SID as it's baby SID. So the company that everyone in the environment looks at this organization as a child. And so he's like, you have to do what's best for baby Sid. And it's kind of funny because he always brings up like, oh, baby Sid, right? But it's true. The organization that we all represent is a child. And if you don't nurture it, you don't feed it, you don't care for it, and you just let everything around it just die, then the kid's going to die and the business is going to die, and now you don't have a business. What's the point in being around?
Right.
That make sense?
Yeah, no, I really like that philosophy. All of that I liked. You started out with Rich Dad Poor Dad, which was the keystone of getting me into real estate. I was in outside sales, doing the jobs just for money, basically. And then someone actually at one of we have like RIA around here. It's one of those meetups. It's in Milwaukee, which is a few hours south of Toronto. But that was one of the books they brought up. And they were like, hey, if you haven't read this book, you should read it. So as I'm sitting there in this meetup, go on Amazon, order it, read it in like a night. It was a night and in the morning. And then after that, I was like, I am done with sales. I am in real estate. This is like where I need to be. Kind of lit the fire. And he talks about all the topics that you just kind of talked about in terms of kind of breaking free of that W-2 paycheck kind of aspect. But what I really like about what you just said and how you have your stuff set up is that team mentality or that family mentality where everybody's playing their part to make the whole company operation, in your analogy, the kid, grow correctly and positively. So I'm on board. I may steal some of your beliefs on that one and institute with our team here. That's awesome. Awesome to hear. That's all I can say.
The way you raise the child, the way you treat the child, is how the entire organization is going to operate. As it grows and as it builds, if you raised it terribly, if you didn't care about the organization, you're going to have a child that doesn't listen. You're going to have clients that don't care. You're not going to be able to tune into it. So it's an analogy that he applied that I've just really started thinking really deeply about recently, and I'm like, that makes so much sense on so many different levels. So I appreciate what you're saying. It totally makes sense. And definitely rip it off. It's not mine. It's his. So if anyone gets mad, it'll be him.
I won't tell him. And it sounds like when you're going through and getting your team members or another piece of your family, you're really looking at the person and then getting them into where their strengths are. I mean, because it sounds like what you were saying, it's more about the person and their care for the company than what they bring to the table in terms of past or education and all that stuff.
Yeah, I struggle with getting rid of people if they're in culture. And I think that's the problem where it's like, if someone's not performing, and I always have a culture of performance. If someone's not performing at a high level or fulfilling the expectations, my first comment or my first idea is what position can they perform in? Because if they're just not showing up and they don't care and they're letting clients down consistently, and I call them about it and they're like, whatever, I don't care, that's a problem. But I mean, I had someone yesterday on the team that we had a listing appointment they canceled because the guy, he spelled his name wrong in a text. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, honestly, like, yes, it sucks that we lost the commission check. It sucks that we lost the client. It sucks that we weren't able to support that guy in his move. But the fact that he literally said he doesn't want to work with you because you spelled his name wrong once, I think that it goes to show the type of client we don't want. But this guy beat himself up on it all night and just kind of like really took it personally because he's like, I let the team down. And that beat him up more than anything else. So it's like, yeah, he missed his goal of how many listings he needed to have because the client basically decided not to work with him. But we wouldn't have wanted to work with that client in the first place because he's not in culture. And so I have an individual who missed goal that I now technically, based on performance, should be getting rid of. But he shows up. He cares. He's compassionate. He does everything he can for it. Like, he'll never make that mistake again. And because of that, there's going to be another role or there's going to be another opportunity for him.
Right. And I'm trying to think back of what I was reading, but they were talking about how people are so quick to let people go because they're not performing.
Oh, yeah.
But really, it's just try and find an aspect that they want to be involved in. Because if you can get your family members or your employees, team members, to buy in and feel appreciated and feel like what they're bringing to the table is worthwhile and they're getting some fulfillment out of it, there really shouldn't be any issues. It's when you run into misalignment in terms of what they want to be doing and what their tasks are, that things start to fall through the cracks.
I just want to say you can't ever let me go. So
you're not going anywhere. I can't let you go. So when you were talking before about not really knowing the mechanicals of how things are run because you put great people in great positions and they kind of take it and run with it, that is Natasha for me. Ask me about Facebook and marketing and all that stuff, and I have literally no idea. Someone will come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I just saw that." I don't want to know. Someone will give me a call and they're like, "Hey, I just saw that video that you posted. That was super cool." I was like, "Oh yeah, that one." I don't know. I have no idea. Natasha just runs it in the background, and I mean, a godsend because
I make things look pretty.
Yeah.
I love that comment. It's so valuable. Everyone in my world knows that if you want to get my attention on something, draw something that has colors. I'm so basic and so simple, but it's like, if you want a really good answer, don't give me a paragraph.
Right.
Make it a picture. You'll get a much better response from me. I'll tell you exactly what needs to get changed. I'll tell you exactly where needs to go. I'm very visual. So if you have writing that I have to read, I'm not going to give you as good of an answer or give you as much advice as if you give me a picture. So it's funny, whenever someone sends me a proposal, I leverage someone out, and I say, okay, well, yeah, go hire this person, or please hire that person, or yeah, go down and KPA this person. And through that, I've gotten so often where I'll get presented to down the road, and I'll be a part of step 4 or 5 when it's a really good candidate. And the comment is, oh, well, I was told to make it pretty. It would be more appealing to you. And I always laugh because making it pretty is so important. And it's like, that's what, there needs to be pretty people in your world. They need to make all this stuff pretty.
I'll send you over an email later then.
It'd just be a picture.
Yeah.
Make sure that's pictures.
Yep. It's a pretty picture.
Absolutely. So what would be in the aspect of inspiring people to get into this wonderful world of real estate, what would be your kind of takeaway or your first step for someone who's listening to the show thinking, oh my God, there's no way I can do what he's doing. That is way too big to take off. I've got so many things in my life. Yeah. There's just no way I can do it. What would be your first step or your first thing to say, hey, you can do it, just do this and stick with it?
Well, if you keep telling yourself you're not going to do it, then you won't.
That is true.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I would say is, like, I'm in a recent kind of push where we're in a world of collaboration. We're in a world of teamwork. And together everyone achieves more. How do we do that? And so I would say, like, the first thing you should do is just go and give her your time for free. Be around someone. Be in an environment that is growth-oriented. Be in an environment where someone wants to help. And then collaboration is now co-elevation, and it's that together everyone can achieve more. And the difference that I find between collaboration and co-elevation is that collaboration is all about sharing good ideas. Co-elevation is about sharing good ideas and taking action on them. And so I think that the idea that people need to collaborate is awesome, but then you need to take it a step further. You need to take action. You need to execute on the goal. And the only reason I am where I am and I have what I have and I've done what I've done is because I've been the one who's actually executed on it. I have not taken any original idea. I have not created anything myself. I've just taken other people's models and systems, and I've implemented them. And I've found the right people to be in my world through trial and error and through failure and through growing through pain to be able to achieve what I have. So take the jump, take the leap, step into it, actually do it, take action on what you want to do, draw it out, and then do it. Don't just draw it out and look at it.
I feel like Natasha's setting me up with this podcast because that's my one thing when people ask me, like, how do I get into real estate? I always tell them work for free.
Yeah.
Like, it's simple. Find a broker that you can just be around the office, filing papers, being an assistant, taking notes, doing scheduling. Just do something for free. Be around the culture. See if you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, it's going to grow from there.
I was going to say, I didn't tell Marcus anything about your background before we had you on today. Like, he got here, and maybe 3 minutes before we pulled up the phone to call you, I was like, oh, wait, here, take a look at this. And you just saw, like, his jaw drop to the ground. He's like, oh, my gosh, Natasha, this is amazing. How did you find it?
And I feel like just your mentality is something that I aspire to get to. And I feel like you bring it down to such a basic level that everybody can take in and everybody understands. But yeah, I think that tidbit of work for free and collaborate and get ideas from others, it's not rocket science. You just got to do it. You have to show up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the main thing.
And I mean, it's so often that people just give these tips. I'm like, what do you do? What do you do? What do you do? Well, you actually just do it. Like Nike said it best. You just actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the difference between a performer and a player is that a performer will do it until they can't mess it up.
Yep.
So you need to just get it right. Just do it. You just try it and try it and try it and try it and try it again. Because eventually you'll get it right. Eventually you'll learn, tweak things, edit things, and just continue to take action. If you're always in action, then you will succeed at it eventually.
Yeah. And not being afraid to fail. I am very open with things that I've failed or messed up on. Like when we're doing construction, we're doing a rehab on a house, and I try to do an idea and it just doesn't fit and doesn't work. I'm like, oh, well, we tried it.
Yeah.
Let's try this. And let's just go to the next one. I don't really try to waste much time. I don't try to like lose sleep. It happens. We messed up. We're going to get back on. We're going to try it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you're instilling that with your employees, which is something that I didn't think to really reiterate to them. So you're kind of light bulb moment of like, hey, you should push this into the people a little bit more. And the one thing that you said, it tipped something in my mind. 3 days ago, my two boys were trying to put on their shoes, and one boy was like, I can't do it. And the other boy looks over, he's like, well, if you tell yourself you won't do it. In his 6-year-old basic phrasing.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, stuff that I've been saying to him is actually sinking in.
That's amazing.
And it's so true.
The best part about that statement is when you bring it back to an employee scenario is that it was the collaborative effort of your two boys. You didn't have to say it. It was them, but it was from what you were doing over and over again. You probably gave the boy who said that the opportunity to fail. And that's something that I see doesn't happen so often in teams is that they say, oh, well, you get fired because you screwed up or you messed up or you did this. That is the best mistake someone can ever make. It's the most expensive lesson they'll ever learn because they'll never do it again.
Yep.
So it's like whenever anyone in my world comes to me and they say, hey, I did this wrong or I did that or can I do this? It's like, absolutely go do it. And if you screw it up, we'll deal with the consequences, but you'll never do it again.
Right.
I was on a coaching call just a couple hours ago, and there was a course that my team leader was going to. He missed his calls this week, didn't hit his goals this week, and so he's now working on the weekend to make up. I didn't force him to work the weekend. I didn't even force him to go to the class. It was 2 days. It was career visioning on how to hire people. And I'm like, okay. And then the coach was like, well, were you forced to go there? Did you have to do that over making your calls? He's like, well, quite honestly, no. I mean, if I didn't go, then if I told Dylan, if I dug my heels in the ground and said, Dylan, I have to make my calls and do my recruits, he would have just said, yeah, okay. He's like, he gives me the autonomy and the freedom to do whatever I want. And because of that, I need to get rid of the BS that I deal with during the day and all week from 9 to 5 on Monday to Friday and then whatever else. And he's like, I need my evenings because of some health reasons, but my weekends are now going to be the time where I can deal with all the BS. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's all the stuff that I don't have time for during the week that distracts me from completing my job. I'm going to catch up on the weekend. I never asked him to do that. It's an aha moment that he had because I allow him the opportunity. I give him the environment to fail. And he learns through his failure.
Yeah.
That sounds like my weekend this weekend too, so he'll have good company.
Yeah, I think in a leadership spot to allow people the autonomy to get stuff done on their own. Like, and sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's frustrating. I'm sure Natasha gets mad at me. But I'm like, hey, we need this flyer, needs to say this, just do it. And she's like, what, is there anything more? I was like, no, I trust you. You're going to make it look good. It just needs to have this information. However you want to organize it is fine with me. You put people in, you trust them, and people will surprise you.
Honestly,
every day.
You're one of my easiest clients. So
I appreciate that. Appreciate it. Do you?
Yeah, it's something that came up on the leadership call this morning. One of the team members was just like, Dylan's probably going to say, I don't care. So let's just pretend that that's the answer he gave. Let's just do what we think is the best and move on. And I'm like, quite honestly, guys, you have two different routes. Both of them are going to get us somewhere, and they're both going to get us further along than where we are right now. So why don't we put that aside? It took more than 5 minutes. I don't have time to deal with this. You guys make the decision, and we'll deal with the problem afterwards.
Right. Right. I mean, you put them in there to do their role, to fill their
obligations.
Yeah. And you trust them, and that's the big thing. Leadership from the top, trusting people to run their little segments is huge. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that's why you have great retention.
Yeah. They'll all perform better.
Yeah, I know. It sounds like it, and I believe it. Within your teams, do you instill these leadership, like you were speaking about Tony Robbins before? People like, I don't know if you're on board with Gary Vee, but he's another guy that I watch and listen to because his motivation is always at 100% no matter what. You ask him to brush your teeth, and he will brush his teeth better, faster. Do you know Gary Vee at all?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't watch him too much. I watch John Maxwell quite a bit. I watch Tony Robbins quite a bit. I mean, what I find is you'll never stop finding incredible motivational speakers.
Yeah.
And I just attach myself to a couple that I think improve my life in a greater meaning, and I've taken action on what they recommend.
Yeah.
And it works at a really high level. I always recommend for everyone in my world to be a part of Tony Robbins' world, because it really does grow you as a person. And being a platinum partner and being in this virtual world, I get to go to every event that Tony does for free. That's what I pay for. So I pay a substantial fee once a year, and then every event for that 12-month period is included. And what he's done now because of COVID, it's actually been such a gift because everything he does is virtual. So instead of me having to fly someone down to test Tony Robbins, like I've increased the amount of people that have seen Tony Robbins in my world, and it gets them all amped up and riled up, and then I attract better people and more committed people because now they're seeing it from someone else. And all they're seeing is that everything I'm applying in my life is just taking from what Tony says and applying it, and taking what Gary says and applying it, and using these concepts that work, bringing them into the business, breaking them down, and then they're like, it's kind of working. We have to break down the amazing stuff that these performance speakers give us, break it down week by week, and then what you see is that when they actually go to the events and they see it, they're like, I know all this stuff. This is where you got it from. And I think my first interaction with that was bold. I mean, Diana Tague took a bunch of motivational speakers, a bunch of quotes, and all these amazing things that top performers did all around the world, and built them and put a real estate twist on it and called it Business Projectable Life by Design. It's not original content. And it's all stuff that other people have done, and it works. And she just built it all out and tied it to real estate. And we entered into this 7-week program that ends up changing your world.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And do you, within your teams, do you instill your employees to take the advantage of Tony Robbins? Do you set up programs for them to watch, listen to? Do you kind of push them into that way, or do you just kind of leave it open-ended?
I don't push them into it. I do it. They see me the day I get back, and they're like, what just happened to you? And my energy levels are even higher. And so most recently, we did Business Mastery 2, and it was he broke it into 2 3-day sessions. So the first 3-day session, day 1 came, and I was thinking about my team the whole time, and so I just texted a bunch of them, and I was like, wait a second, why are they not here? And so day 2 came, and I invited one of my director of operations came, and she spent 16 hours, and her mind was blown. She's like, you spend 5 days doing this? I think she took the whole next day off. It was like one 16-hour day, and she was just mentally drained because of the energy that was in that room, and it was through a TV. And so then I ended up, she's like, I can't be here tomorrow, so she didn't come on the Sunday, and so I invited a couple other teammates to it, and I'm like, hey, what are you guys up to? They're like, well, I have a couple appointments. I'm like, well, you can make the decision. I'm not going to force you into it, but I got Tony Robbins on right now, and pretty amazing stuff. You guys want to come over? And without a moment notice, they were there. They dropped everything to be there. And I think when I first started taking it, it wasn't that way. And then as people started to see my energy and where it came from, and they started to realize that it came from Tony, they're like, wait a second. Especially during COVID, I'm in a mental area that's not as good as I'd like it to be. I need to change my physical state. And so they get in World with Tony, and they're like, this is exactly what I need. And all of a sudden, they're a changed person in a very short period of time. And the change isn't because they went and applied one concept. It's just they changed their state and their energy. Mm-hmm. And then, bam, different.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing when you focus on and surround yourself with that energy, how much it just kind of pulls you in. And that was one thing that, I mean, I will admit, through the whole COVID, I don't know what month stretch was that. It was like 5-6 months of when it was really, really bad, at least in this area. Yeah. That was one thing that dropped off where, man, I had more time than I've had before because obviously things were slowed down. on the personal side. Work didn't really stop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish I would have capitalized on that more, because I'm just coming off of that down period with that energy as things reopen. Missed the boat on it, but it's not something you can sit and just dwell on. You just got to keep going on it.
Now you have time.
I know. And I've got somebody to follow to inspire me. Just,
Yes.
we're going to get on to, do we grab his social already?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, we're going to grab your information because we got to kind of wrap up the podcast. We hit about an hour. I still have 1,000 questions.
So we'll have to have you come back again so Marcus can pick
I
your
know.
brain.
But we're going to get you on Zoom.
Yes.
We're going to get you on Zoom.
So
But
welcome to 2021.
And I'll do my hair, and I'll do my makeup, and I'll look like a normal human being.
you're going to go on your call next week, be like, I had this podcast. I feel like they're in the 90s or something.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah.
No, but
Wait, I have one question.
yes.
Are you doing any home remodeling projects, or what has been your favorite like remodeling project or just DIY project at home?
You got to
Not
get
the
dirty.
best question
Being in
to
real
answer.
estate, you got to get dirty somewhere.
I just finished. I didn't just finish. Before COVID, I finished taking my primary residence, which is a single-family home, and I turned it into a legal duplex, Airbnb in the basement.
Oh, nice.
And so now I live for free, which seems kind of crazy. And so just literally a month ago, I decided to have this crazy idea. I was like, I'm going to buy a new house. And so I'm not remodeling. I just literally just bought a new house. And so the biggest like remodeling itch that I was doing kind of got satisfied with my 32-unit apartment building that I took down to the studs and did absolutely everything on. New windows, new painting inside and out, gutted the whole thing, new insulation, new HVAC, new heating, new plumbing, new electrical, new roof. You name it, this thing's been done. And so I'm kind of just sitting there going, I'll let all the remodeling happen with the team now. I am totally good to just live in a nice house and have nice things and just enjoy the fruits of the labor, because I've definitely lived through my fair share of home renos. And I think I'd probably be single if I decided to do it again. So I made the educated decision
Yes.
to remain in my beloved relationship and keep my girlfriend around longer by not putting her through another home renovation. So
Yes.
the remodeling days are probably behind me. And if they're in front of me, they're either going to be in properties that I don't live through, or they're going to be done while I'm on a very nice vacation somewhere outside of the home
There you go.
to make sure we don't live through it anymore.
Yes.
That
totally
is a
get
good. That is a good choice.
My husband's learned quickly too. Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, we
Exactly.
just flipped the house that we live in currently, and we moved in as things were finishing up, and we did not have toilets set, and I was fine because like me and the boys were like, we're gonna go camping.
God.
Basically, I have never been yelled at more.
I'm sure.
So I am on your side where I'm just not gonna do a renovation of my house. I'm just
No.
gonna do it on
I
other
feel
ones.
awful for your girlfriend.
She was not happy. But so we got to wrap it up, and I'm sorry that we got to cut it off. But we're gonna grab your social media website and put that in the show notes in the bottom so people can follow you. I'm definitely gonna talk you up. Hopefully, people can follow you as well. Hopefully, you don't mind me reaching out, asking some questions, because I'm sure you're a wealth of knowledge. But what is one way that our audience, people listening to this, can get a hold of you? What's the best way or the easiest way to do that?
So you can follow me on Instagram at Dylan Suitor Elevate, DylanSuitor Elevate. That would probably be the easiest way. And yeah, absolutely, I'm happy to talk to anyone or have anyone reach out. I'm doing my Elevate Your Wealth session, so I had really good success with this a year ago, and just started saying like I'm going to do a 30-minute open question and answer of ask me literally anything, and we can just kind of chat and how do we increase your revenue streams and elevate your wealth. And so it's been really successful, and so check those out. A lot of people have kind of done so, and all I ask is that at the end of it, I have to get a 30 to 60 to 90 second video around what you took away. So I have 3 questions that I ask. What was your biggest takeaway? What are you going to implement right now? Because as you've seen, it's all about action and getting into action.
Yep.
So what are you going to implement immediately to get into action? And then the third one is who else do you know that I got a value add conversation with? So
Yeah.
check me out on Instagram. That would be probably the easiest and best way.
Awesome. Thank you. You've been very inspiring today.
Yeah, I have so many things taken away from this show. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for giving us your time. I know that with all the stuff you have going on, I'm sure you're pretty busy. But I just want to let you know that I appreciate it, and we'll get you on a Zoom call next.
I love it. I appreciate you guys having me on, and if you don't mind just sharing me the link, that'd be greatly appreciated. And keep it saved and share it out. So
yes,
absolutely a pleasure to be on. Really happy to kind of take the conversation that we did, and however we can stay in touch, let's do so.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you
so much. We'll talk to you
All right,
soon.
take care.
Bye.
Bye for now.